Hey, we're live and welcome. Hi to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. I, your shamanic griot Sensei Al Bob, welcomes you for this interlude of fun. Right? Let's see if our little. Uh, can you hear me? Yep. Live chat's working. Oh, there's two of you there. So I was, JB kind of out of the school, and I've been here in the deep green now. This Saturday coming will be 3 weeks, and it's interesting because when you are, I had plans. I had finished all my medical stuff, which was good, and I had, hey Aaron, loud and clear, and I was involved with a number of people who were running for office um, for state representative, which is a good position, better than any local mayor or city council, any of that stuff. And I was helping them. And there were the kids who were up against the Dominion gas pipeline that they're putting through our neck of the woods. And no one really knows, meaning to stop something, to get involved politically, socially, you've got to really get away from the emotions and look at what's going on, right? And so you have to almost step outside of yourself and serve the better good, right? And these kids who are up there are really great. They're all white pretty much as I could see. They're all college grads and they all want to change the world. Great, right? So they're all put themselves in front of the Dominion pipeline. Well, they're out there in the middle of nowhere. No one can see them. The media doesn't go up there. And so the guys have been coming, and just before the denouement of the conflict, the gas company stops and goes someplace else and leaves them up there. And that's how this works. You have to first figure out why are they putting this gas line down these really sensitive mountain ranges in Virginia, destroying the water, the look, meaning if you're on 81 and you go past, between, exit 132 and Blacksburg, whatever that is, there is a big hill, right? And the only place that the general public can see the pipeline is off to the side on that hill. This is about 2 miles away. They're bringing the pipeline down, right? And it's exactly what they're doing across all of Virginia, all of West Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New York. The right of way is about the size of a football field, meaning it's, normally it's maybe 20, 40 feet size of a football field. And why is that? It's because they want to be able to bring trucks with gas turbines and plop them there, hook it up to that gas line, and put the wire up to the transmission lines. And every place that you see, and this area in Virginia has 6 of the largest transmission lines, electric transmission lines, on the East Coast. 80% of the current goes right through this neck of the woods because they have plenty of other pipelines in the mountains that were put in forever, long ago. So there's enough capacity to carry this oil and gas. But why they're doing this one is so they can have the gas exactly where they want it, right under these power lines. Because next 5-10 years, no one's going to own a car. Everyone's going to have a little app on their phone. They're going to hit it, and Uber will show up. Why is Uber, this quarter spent $5 billion on research because they want to be your car, and they're located to be your car. And so Why did Facebook do what it did and then went public? And it made no money forever until it became the central hub of what's the word? When they observe you, you being observed starts with an S. It'll pop into my mind. But anyway, our commerce is now um, the real value, the real commodity is we, the individual. Every time we go on Google, they're broadening their app on who we are. If you ever saw that movie with Tom Cruise, The Minority Report, that's where we're going. And that's what Spielberg was giving, and that was done in the '90s. And the psychics that were hooked up to their brains with fiber optics, that was the algorithm. I wouldn't doubt if that was what's going on right now. The algorithm is a bunch of brain dead folk who are, their brain is being used as a avatar for the AI. So, and I've been around a lot of this, over the years as a scholar, because they would bring me in to look at certain things. And I was at Cornell, and I was, doing a study, a sociological study, nothing that had to do with, I almost had it, it's when you're being observed, right? Anyway, so this was, I went to Cornell. A friend of mine stuck me in there because she was head of admissions and she could put anyone in Cornell, and she did. And she put me in the sociology department, the cultural sociology department. And I was working with a group that was developing ways to um, understand how to put the human experience into a database so an algorithm could start taking it apart and understanding human experience, right? And I did that for about 6 months, 8 months, and then I got a call, and they had just built this gigantic black monolith. It looked like it came straight out of 2001, but it was like 30 stories tall, and it was so out of character from Cornell's um, you know, area, their school, because their school it was kind of like tech. It was all these very 19th century stone buildings, and this thing was a black tomb, 30 stories high. It overlooked everything, and it was like one gigantic computer, and that it was called the Math Center, and it was paid for by DARPA, and it was put there to work on the algorithms allegedly to shoot down missiles, for Star Wars. It looked just like Darth Vader, and they put it in a place where Cornell is. Colonel Cornell stole that property from the Iroquois. And it was their most sacred place because this river comes right through the campus. And he said, "Well, there's not much I can. You got the guns, and there's not much I can do about this. But hey, don't put anything here, here, and here. These are very sacred sites, and if you do, you will rule the day because the spirits will come and get you. And the spirits, that school has more suicides. And they had to, every midterms and finals, it looks like Auschwitz because they put a barbed wire. That's just this, big river going through their campus, and it's like waterfalls. Um, over the years, the engineering department has built all these bridges, different types, suspension bridges, this kind of bridge. Anyway, the kids started just jumping off and killing themselves, right? Because they're stressed, they're such, grinders. And and every time they have the finals or midterms, they put up barbed wire so they can't get and just jump off the bridge. And they got floodlights going across, the grassy knolls. And this is a lot of stuff. You go to any national laboratory in in the United States, Los Alamos, Sandias, Kirkland Air Force Base, Fermi Labs, Brookhaven, they all have, you know, Cornell Avenue, Cornell Boulevard. Cornell was really instrumental in building the atomic bomb and the Manhattan Project and building the hydrogen bomb. Just like Chicago University, that's where Fermilab is. So anyway, so um, I went there, and what they had, I came to this conference, conference room with all these computer scientists, and I'm going, why am I here? What do I have to do with Star Wars? Oh no, this ain't Star Wars. What we've been doing here is almost had surveillance. That's the word they use. Surveillance. We're building the surveillance economy. What's that? Goes, oh well, in the near future. Uh, Somebody was calling in, and I didn't jump on it. Uh, 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 you'll have to excuse me just a second. I'll be right back. You stay there. Amuse yourselves. Talk amongst yourselves.
Is everything all right, sir?
Always good. I love your news.
Oh.
Do you want some ketchup or? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll let you go on. Same. All that same one. I did it.
I'm back. Here I am. I'm back. Anyway,
We doing good over here?
yeah.
Do you want me to go ahead and get some of this out of your way?
Oh, you can take the cat. Well, no, I might get something else.
Okay.
So I'm good.
Alrighty.
I'm going to stay a little longer waiting for someone and might have another meal.
Okay, sounds good.
Yep. Ba, 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 ba. Oh, now I can hear the ringtone. That's good. Okay. Anyway, so this is the book I was reading. The Invisible Monster, right? And then you see the other side, and that's what the invisible monster kind of looks like. You know, this is the inside of the invisible monster. This is. And what this book talks about, here, let me read some of it to you. So this is the opening few pages, right? This guy is the guy who wrote Fight Club, right? So listen what people say about him, right? So, so the book is, she's a fashion model who has everything, a boyfriend, a career, loyal best friend, but when a sudden freeway accident leaves her disfigured and incapable of speech, she goes from being a beautiful center of attention to being an invisible monster, so hideous that no one will acknowledge she exists. Enter Brandy Alexander, Queen Supreme, one operation away from becoming a real woman, who will teach her that reinventing yourself means erasing your past and making up something better. And the salvation hides in the last place you ever want to look. Yourself, deeper self, right? And then there's James Sullivan says, Chuck Palahniuk stories don't unfold. They hurtle headlong, changing lanes in threes and banging off the guardrails of modern fiction. This time he has really done it. Incredible Invisible Monster makes the author's jarring first novel, Fight Club, seem like a leisurely buggy ride. Right? So this is how chapter 1, where you're supposed to be some big West Hills wedding reception in a big manor house with flowers, arrangements, and stuffed mushrooms all over the house. This is called scene setting, where everybody is who's alive, who's dead. This is Eve Cortell's big wedding reception moment. Eve is standing halfway down the big staircase in the manor house foyer, naked inside what's left of her wedding dress, still holding her rifle. Me, I'm standing at the bottom of the stairs, but only in a physical way. My mind is, I don't know where. Nobody's all the way dead yet, but let's just say the clock is ticking. Not that anybody in this big drama is a real person either. You can trace everything about Eve Cortell's look back to some television commercial for a organic shampoo, except right now Eve's wedding dress is burned down to just the hoop skirt wires orbiting her hips and just a little wire skeleton of all the silk flowers that were in her hair, and Eve's blonde hair, her big teased up back combed rainbow in every shade of blonde brown, up with hairspray. Well, Eve's hair is burned off too. Can you imagine that? Here's a woman who's kind of attractive, um, maybe what they call big boned, because she's actually a guy who's had a sex change only because he was bored because he came from a really rich family and wanted to be a fashion model. So all she can do is infomercials. Right? That's what big bone girls do, infomercials. And so here she's having this big time. Her parents are super rich Texan oil folk, and they basically use her as a tax write-off. Meaning, when she did her sex change, they said sure because they made millions off of the write-off they took. Um, and so here she is, totally naked underneath, and all that's left is her like metal hoop skin skirts and the little metal facades that held the flowers in her hair, and her hair is burnt off, and she's covered in soot, and she's holding a 30-06. Right? You can trace everything about Eve Cortell's look back to some television commercial. Okay, what I tell myself is the gush of red pumping. Let's see. The only other character here is Brandy Alexander, who's laid out, shotgunned at the bottom of the staircase, bleeding to death. And this is another transsexual who is the girl without a jaw, is brother, and they look just alike. And now that he is becoming a woman, he looks just like she did, when she was like amazingly gorgeous, right? What I tell myself is the gush of red pumping out of Brandy's bullet hole is less like blood than it's some socio-political tool. The thing about being cloned from all those shampoo commercials, well, that goes for me and Brandy Alexander too. Shotgunning anybody in the room would be a moral equivalent to killing a car. And as you can see, this is not even 2 pages. He's basically deconstructing our whole materialistic social structure, and he just does not stop. And he has this literary thing here. It's not that I'm some detached lab animal just conditioned to ignore violence, but my first instinct is maybe it's not too late to dab club soda on the bloodstain. Most of my adult life so far has been me standing on a seamless paper of a raft of bucks per hour, wearing clothes, shoes, my hair done, and some famous fashion photographer telling me how to feel. Him yelling, "Give me lust, baby, flash. Give me malice, flash. Give me detached existential ennui, flash. Give me rampant intellectualism as a coping mechanism, flash." And that's his literary tool, because he jumps all over the place. There is no, steady, linear point of view. And that's to tell you, the audience, the reader, that life does not have a steady, linear point of view, right? So that's kind of what we're talking about today. Except for all the lights drama, it's really nice day. This is, let's see, just before Evie comes screaming down the stairs and shoots Brandy Alexander. What I did was pour out about a gallon of Chanel No. 5 and put a burning wedding invitation to it, and boom, recycling. It's funny, but when you think about even the biggest tragic fire, it's just sustained chemical reaction, the oxidation of Joan of Arc, still spinning On the floor, the rifle points at me, points at Brandy, points at Evie. Another thing is no matter how much you think you love somebody, you'll step back when the pool of their blood edges up to you close. Except for all this high drama, it's really a nice day. This is a warm, sunny day, and the front door is open to the porch and the lawn outside. The fire upstairs draws the warm smell of fresh cut lawn into the foyer, and you can hear all the wedding guests outside. All the guests, they took their gifts they wanted, the crystal, the silver, and went out to wait on the lawn for the firemen and the paramedics to make their entrance. Brandy, she opens one of her huge ring beaded hands and she touches the hole, pouring her blood all over the marble floor. Brandy, she says, shit, there's no way that Bone Marsh will take this suit back. Meaning, Brandy has been going to the fanciest of fancy dress stores and clothing stores and getting a piece of clothing and buying it and then wearing it to an event, to get, using it and then bringing it back within a week saying, oh, I don't like it. So this book just goes on, and every page is like Brandy says, and if you can find any way out of our culture, then that's a trap too. Brandy's got this great little. Relax, Brandy says. Whatever you're thinking, a million other folks are thinking. Whatever you do, they're doing. And none of you is responsible. All of you is a cooperative effort. Up under my veil, I finger. And so the person who's telling the narrative is a person who doesn't have a jaw. It got shot off. So that's what the figures are. Up under my veil, my finger and wet poking stub of a tongue from some vandalized product the doctor suggested using. Anyway, they go in. She whenever she talks about that, she goes into a real medical thing that's like disgusting. You're the product of our language, Brandy says, and how our laws are and how we believe our God wants us. Every bitty molecule about you has already been thought out by some million people before you, she says. Anything you can do is boring and old and perfectly okay. You're safe because you're trapped inside your culture. Anything you can conceive of is fine because you can conceive of it. You can't imagine any way to escape. There's no way you can get out, Brandy says. And that's why, the canary in the coal mine is such a great example of what's going on. Just look at his YouTubes. Look at me. These are all just exactly this. Meaning, why I'm in the position I am. My brother used to say, you made your decisions. Well, I spent my life, these 70 years, I had all kinds of careers. I was a pretty well-known photojournalist. I could have stayed doing that, but I didn't want to because I did it in splurges. Meaning, first I was a photojournalist of my family. At 10, my dad, he was an Air Force colonel. He had his own photographer, but once he got out of the Air Force, he no longer had a photographer. So he used to take the pictures. He had a Rollo 2 1/4, and it was a great camera. And he got tired of taking pictures of us, so he just one day handed me the camera. He goes, here how it works, take the picture. So I did. And they were always about him and my mother. And him and my mother and us, him and my mother doing this, him and my mother. And I was the family photographer, right? And now my brother became the family historian of those photos, right? So he's got them all, which is good. I had some pretty amazing photos of everything that I ever did, and my father threw them out. because I trusted that he wouldn't, I built him a big fancy $1 million house for about $60,000. And I built a secret closet in that house and I put all my stuff and I went away. And, and that's what I would do. I would go away. I would reinvent myself. So, I was a photographer, and that photography got me into learning about light. And that learning about light, you know, made me a lighting designer. And I was an electrician, from when I was 6 months old. I stuck a knife in an electric socket and was like, ooh, this feels good. My mom came over, grabbed me, she got blown across the room. That's how I ended up, being taken care of my grandma. She was good at not touching me when I was electrified. But I kept going back to my parents' apartment and blowing things up. And hey, buddy, bud. And much love to you, my friend. And we'll try the Skype thing soon. I think I got it down. But I'll give you a buzz later today. I'm going to be here. I'm at the IHOP, one of my transcendental offices, and I'll give you a buzz. But anyway, so, at 9, my mom walked me down 3rd Avenue, went into the first electric shop, and it was Mike Stahl, Jr.'s, right? And his father, Mike Stahl Sr., Grandpa Stahl, had the first master electrician's license in the United States. He started the International Brotherhood of Electric Workers, right? He was Nikola Tesla's #1 electrician, bench guy, meaning Tesla would go into state, see the invention he made, come out, make a working drawing, give it to Grandpa Stahl. Grandpa Stahl would manufacture it, right? So this was my original electrical mentor, basically getting from the horse's mouth from Nikola Tesla. And my job for the first 2.5 years was just to hang with Grandpa Stahl and learn from him and make sure he didn't walk in front of a bus. And he had a room that he had all these rooms in buildings that he built. Like he had a room in the Chrysler building, because he built that, and that was built without any wires, induction coils, right? And that was supposed to be the real, thing of the new age. Oh look, the whole building was not hooked up to the Edison grid. It was pulling down current from the 0 point, right? And Mr. Morgan showed Mr. Chrysler these pictures of Mr. Chrysler having sex with children. And I said, well, hey, this building's great. Made out of stainless steel, all those nice antennas up there, gargoyles. But unless you put Mr. Edison's wires in there, these pictures are going to all my friends, Mr. Pulitzer, Mr. Hearst, and that'll be the end of you, buddy. So that's why we did not get free energy, in the early 20th century. That would have changed the world, And I kept Tesla, at the New Yorker Hotel, at first at, the really fancy hotel in New York, Waldorf Astoria. And anyway, so my whole life, if I have anything in my life, it is that I'm just a lucky bastard, that I am brought to these situations. And they said, oh, I can't do that. My job at Walmart, I can't give that up. I said, sure, let's go. Anybody would drop by and say, hey, let's go on the road. I would get in that car, because I've physically died 6 times and was brought back. So I realized that death is no big deal. As Buddha said, dying is like slipping out of a tight slipper, right? Anyway, so this book, The Invisible Monster, that's, and that goes straight back to the great film Forbidden Planet, Monsters from the Id, right? Id, our superconscious mind. Well, it's the bridge between our subconscious mind and our superconscious mind. And if you go back to seeing one of those pictures, Dragon drew this picture when he was 11 years old of exactly that, of of him and us over here in this library, and then a bridge and with stars and night everywhere to the old Crone's farm. And he did that when he was 11, and he sent it to me, and I showed it to you guys um, on the one of the shows way back. Anyway, and all of that stuff that Dragon sent me, I somehow can't find. And either I stuck it someplace subconsciously and I'll find it a year or two from now, or, my host, the canary, took it, because he would go into my, when I was gone, like right now, I have all my stuff still there. And, he would go in and go through it. He had no sense of respect or privacy because I own this place. This is my school. And little does he know that the school is not owned by anyone. He's just paying the taxes. I never owned the school for those 15 years. I just paid the taxes. Hey, Twitchy, good to see you, girl. And so I read a little bit from this book here, Invisible Monster. And let's see. We are a product of our language, Brandy says, and how our laws are how we believe our God wants us to be. Every bitty molecule about you has already been thought out of by some million people before you. Anything you can do is boring and old and perfectly okay. And this is kind of why my life has been this travelcade of adventures. Meaning, instead of me saying, "Oh, I want it safe. I want $1 million. I want all my bills paid. I want to be famous." No. I had many times to be famous. I had many times to be rich. But I didn't do it because I knew that it would stick me in that place where I'd be boring and bored. Now, having the canary throw me out of the school after he threw a plate glass window, and I'd been keeping the kitchen unbelievably clean. It's a slop kitchen. Well, so after he painted the floor and painted the stove and cleaned things up when I was away and I came back, I cleaned up every smudge. I never let anything, right? And he got frustrated that I didn't leave a mess. So when he threw that glass across the kitchen, he threw, and I had made him a smoothie. And he lost it because I made it in a 12-year-old blender that when I bought it at Walmart 15 years ago, it cost $12. So, the armature was made out of recycled tin cans. So the brushes, I don't know if you guys ever smelled a crappy motor, the little arcing of the brushes on the armature makes ozone, and it takes the carbon from the brushes. And it makes a little carbony smell. Well, the canary said, "You're trying to kill me. Oh, you somehow magically made that smell and had it, because I was at one end of the kitchen and he was on the other end of the house. And he said that I, magically forced the smell to go to him and go into his lungs and he was going to die." And he was so upset with that, he flung the full glass of about that much of, grape, smoothie across the kitchen, and it went everywhere. I mean, it was amazing how that one glass covered every square foot, cubic inch of the kitchen. I mean, talk about slop kitchen. It looked like, and it went through the glass, and the big windows that you see whenever I'm in the kitchen went right through one of them. It was amazing, right? And he was could, that window could have been me, and the red juice that was everything, where it could have been my blood, right? And then he starts, get out, get out, get out now. You have to leave now. You're making me so anxious. And what it really was, he was getting another one of his Moscow wives to come, polish his knob, and he didn't want me around. Which he could have said, hey, do you think you can, you know, hang someplace else for a couple of days, which I had already done because I had my eyes operated on. I stayed at my friend's house for about 4 days, and that was the day I came back. And he could have, I talked to him on the phone, how you doing, da, da, da. He could have said, can you stay away a couple more days? I could have easily. And this is what the Canary does. And this is what this book so amazingly describes. It's genius. It's what it is, right? Now, my novels, my friend says it's James Joyce on acid. But, and if you go to XRATTED and read them, you'll see them. But this one, by guy's name is Chuck, and I know I'm mispronouncing his last name, so I'll spell it PALAHNIUK. Right? So, what else can I say? That's our life, so that's why, I travel the world for so many years. That's why I lived, and when I traveled, I didn't just go there for the weekend. I would stay wherever I was for, 2-3 months, a year, I've spent, 8 months in Jamaica and Negril. I spent 3 years in Australia. I spent a year and a half in Brazil. And that was Negril, Jamaica. Right? Hey, Nitty. Mantram. Anyway, Nitty, what is MANTURM? No idea. Anyway, but the Canary it's again. I'll read this again. And this is, I'm reading this straight as if I was, talking to John Birmingham. You're a product of our language and how our laws are and how we believe our God wants us. Every bitty molecule about you, John Birmingham, has already been thought out by some million people before you. Anything you can do is boring and old and perfectly okay. You're safe because you're so trapped inside your boring self. Anything you can conceive of is fine because you can conceive of it, but it's boring. You can't imagine any way to escape. There's no way you can get out. The world is your cradle and your trap. And unless you put yourself in an uncomfortable place, and that's what I tried to do with the Canaries, was help him by not being like his mommy, not being like his daddy, not like being any of the cradle, but just kind of pushing his envelope a little bit. That's all I was trying to do to help him. It's almost spit coffee everywhere. Oh my God. Yep, exactly. Thank you, Nitty, for explaining that to me. Oh my God. And it got to a point where it's like, oh my God. But see, John is my friend, and I do not, unlike John, throw any of my friends under the bus. I'm there for the long haul to try, because I have seen John Birmingham make great strides. The problem is, he does this. I mean, sometimes he's pretty good this way, and can go on pretty good this way, but he, and, you know, most people don't realize that they are, just an ugly bag of water. This body is not you, working out and getting cut at 41 years old is, unless you like doing that, if you like doing that. And people who, John would show me these, look at this guy, he's 80 years old and look how good he looks. Other than his face looks like an old shoe, his body looks like he's 25 years old. Well, if you go and read that guy's website and his blog, he does it not to become rich and famous. He does it because he enjoys doing it. And that's why he's successful at it, right? It's not a drudge. It's not a chore. It's not tedious. He really likes doing it, right? So, but otherwise, he wouldn't be doing it. He actually says that. So if I didn't like doing this, I'm not doing this for the YouTube. I'm not doing it for the money. I'm not doing it for any of this. I'm doing it because I like doing it. And I like helping other people. Not to show that I'm right or that I'm better than they are, but that I like helping them and that they may appreciate and enjoy this like I do, right? So, anyway, I am a dog boy. I've always been a dog boy. I relate to dogs very well. I relate to all animals. I was at a gathering last Saturday, and it was kind of amusing because a lot of people brought their dogs, and I just kind of sat because I couldn't get around. It was a pretty steep hill. I mostly sat in this one chair, and people came and talked to me, but all of their dogs, instead of running around and barking and making an annoyance, they came and sat by me. And I had 5 or 6 dogs, just, 3 or 4 on either side of me, just sitting there grooving on my juice, And so, we have to relate to each other as, that we're all our relations, that we're all part of, the nitty gritty little molecules of the universe, that we're not really that special. Anyway, this show is getting more and more enjoyably humorous, and not just for my stories, but how people like the canary respond. It's like they don't realize, like this guy here who wants to be his pet dog. He is John Birmingham. Whether he is or he's not. He is, meaning there is, he is not thinking up any real creative thoughts at all. He's just reiterating what the canary would say, because he is a canary, And what we all have to realize is that we are all a canary in the coal mine at some time. Right now, at this place waiting for a friend of mine who's like this big, environmentalist dude, all about sustainability. And I tried to explain to them that it's already a lost cause. Meaning, if you have children, you're going to watch them suffer an unbelievable, miserable life because we have dumped so much carbon into the ocean. I mean, the grand forests of Brazil and other places are being cut down. They don't exist anymore, but they weren't the lungs of the planet. The oceans were. Right, and are. And we have dumped so much carbon and heavy metals and every other toxic stuff into those oceans. And in mid 70s. I was in Australia, and I went and looked at the barrier reefs and just snorkeling, just paddling away around through it. I wasn't a diver, but it was amazing. It was like going through another universe. Now my friends who are there, it's deader than a doornail. All the largest reefs in the world are gone. They're not coming back. For a good 20 years they get bleached, and then they kind of come back bleached, and now they're just covered in gunk. And the coral itself, which is a living creature, is deader than a doornail. So, right now we have so much carbon in the ocean that by 2030, which is not too far away, 11 years, we will have a rise in sea level somewhere between a foot and 10 feet. Now, these guys who are measuring this stuff, they can't tell you exactly what it's going to be, but so far, all of this was known in the 1890s. The term fossil fuels is a total joke, because in the 1890s there was a conference in France about the end of the world. The population was starting to spike. I mean, it kind of pretty much stayed here, and then after the Civil War and industrialization started to do this, right? Because we were kind of around 500 million, a billion people for pretty much all of time until around, the 1870s. And that's when, and imperialism, starting in the 1740s. And in between the 1740s and 1790s, there were some pretty amazing, horrific planetary things, like the fires in Chicago. That wasn't started by Mr. McGillicuddy's cow. Now, there was one 20 years before when Chicago had been, before the railroads brought the cows to Chicago, and Chicago became the slaughterhouse town. Chicago was a small town of about 60,000 people. And then when the railroad showed up, it shot up to 200,000. And then around 300,000 was just expanding, and they were cutting all the trees down, and it was a wood city. And that's when Mrs. McGillicuddy's cow set the thing on fire. And it burned up because it was all wood. Well, when they rebuilt it, because they had all the trains going there, they weren't like going to just walk away from it. They made it out of steel and concrete. And the fire that occurred, that everyone knows the Chicago fire, was when the city was a city of steel and concrete. Steel and concrete doesn't really burn. And what happened was, a chunk of what was left of the Kuiper Belt came flying through. And it was more or less part of, you hear about the Planet X, well, that already came through. It's not coming back for another few thousand years now. Chunks of it and other little things occurring, because these things don't occur all at once. Like, when everyone was all bent out of shape about 2012, and it's the end of times, it's the end of the Mayan calendar. What is the end of the Mayan calendar? It was the end of the Piscean age, the beginning of the Aquarian age. And that crossover started in the 1600s, right? And so there's an inertia of things. So the Piscean age, even though we're no longer in it, kind of, still has an inertia. And that's why we had Donald Trump, and that's why we had all the wars in the Mideast, and we had, Bush, Cheney, and we had and Billy, all of this was part of that. And so 2012, one of the best books about 2012 is a guy named Whitley Strieber, wrote a book called 2012. And it begins with this, you're watching a TV and all the news people, well, here it is, it's 5 minutes before New Year's, and we were, 2012, and the world's supposed to end, ha, 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 ha. And, count on 5, 4, 3, bing, and you see the ball fall, and bing, and nothing happens. Well, stuff did happen, you just didn't notice it. Book cuts to 2030, right? And the world's falling apart, right? And this guy who was a child, of that period, um, is brought to this place out in the country of Virginia where there are all these alleged scientists thinking about how to save the earth because it's just falling apart. I mean, it's like, there's no hiding it. The temperature is like off. People are melting. If you go to my xratted.blogspot and read the story about Ray, the Golden Man, you will. It's like that. That short story is somewhere between this and and this, and that's where we're at. And so.
You doing good over here?
So good. You're like,
Yeah.
what takes it so
Yo-Yo here. He's pretty interesting for a teenager. It's interesting that Yo-Yo even knows about the menstrual cycle, unless he's got one himself. And he could be. I think Yo-Yo is this guy right here. This is Yo-Yo. And Yo-Yo, if you don't realize, I'm not going to wrench you out of the live chat because you're amusing. You're comic relief. You're something that the rest of the cadre can comment on or chuckle about, and that's good. The sad thing is that you're not stepping into love. You're not wanting to be part of the cadre. It's all about you, and that's a pretty boring position. That's exactly Yo-Yo. You need to get this book. The Invisible Monster, because that's kind of what you are. But you're screaming over in the corner, and I feel for you, buddy. I really do. And I in any way I can help you, I'm here to. And so is the cadre. Every time we pray, we're praying for you, buddy. That you can step up to being that great person that you are. And not being this comic book character that kind of looks like this, where you could be that, And this is great because this really describes the Libra personality. Because see, it's like a scale. You go this way, it's this. That way, it's this. And that's you, Yo-Yo. Buddy, come on. I get those hot flashes. Those hot flashes. Yes, I'd be definitely into menopause. I don't think I could be a good woman. I don't have the cojones to be a woman. I have this friend of mine. She's a I can't even know what to call her. She's a scholar, first and foremost, and she's a linguist, second. And she's way past. She hung out with all the neo feminists, and she just was disgusted with them. And so, because she was doing it, she wasn't like complaining about it, and she used to. So we were involved in many different social things. And I remember being at the powers that shouldn't be would invite us to these fancy, dinners and meetings because they kind of wanted our outsider point of view because we weren't really going to attack them politically. We would just give them, hey. And she says, you guys gotta woman up and get some ovaries. And that's really it. Women are really, in my little research of the near way back past, women ran everything, and the last refuge of that was, the girls that Wonder Woman came from, I love that movie. Yeah, she is so, World War One, they're in the trench, everyone's got their head down. She's like up there looking around, seeing, oh, okay, I have to go after those guys. And she's like wearing a bathing suit with some, jewelry, and she just goes over and the machine guns are like right at her, and she's like, bing, 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 bing. And she kicks ass. She breaks right through the line, And everyone is like, here's this girl in this bathing suit, in dancing slippers, kicking butt. And only a woman like that could. No guy could. Her boyfriend did the best. He sacrificed himself. That's what men are. We're like sacrificial flies, basically. It's your birthday. It's your birthday. It's Nitty's birthday. Happy birthday, Nitty. Yes. Love you, Nitty. Happy birthday, buddy. You too, Twitch. New high score. Yep. I mean, every morning I wake up and scream in pain. My eyes pop open like chatty Cathy. And, the first thing I say, thank you, God, for another day. And then I meditate and get everything, plugged in, and I can get up, put my shoes on, and walk up the hill. And where I am now, it's a big hill. I have to go to here, and the bus is there, and then I go up another hill. My little shack is up there, and where I sleep is down here. So from here to here is about a football field's length. It's about 40 degrees, but it's very nice. It's a nice grassy, well drained. It's maybe 40 feet wide. Because when I had the site, created out of the forest, I did a great job. Really good drain. And no matter how, we had rain a couple of weeks ago, where it rained 4 inches in an hour. It was like, I never really was, it's under the tarp, and, I didn't get wet, and I was sitting in a nice lounge chair with a pillow, and I just watched it rain. And a buddy of mine came to visit me. He always comes on a rainy day. I don't know why, but he does. And I went out there with a, beach umbrella, like, I just said, oh, look. Went up to his car. We got out. We walked back under the tarp and sat and had a couple of beers. We talked, and and he was, boy, there's no puddles at all. The water just goes away like magic. And I said, yeah, because I put French drains in, and then I covered the whole thing with stone, and then I put, fertilizer down and stuff, and grew grass on top of it. So it's actually a stone driveway with grass on it. So the stone doesn't wash away. And so like I said, it was amazing how it drains. And on either side of the property, there's 2 drainage things that go down to the stream. And so it's very well drained. Yep, we're all living. 28 is a great age, Aaron. And you have, you can go do anything you want. I'm a prime example. I've had about 8 what people would call professions, careers. And right kind of at their height, I bailed. This is boring. I'm done with this. I did everything. I've learned it all, or learned enough to know that I don't like, when I got my MSW and became a shrink, I did it and I liked it. But within the construct of the social economic structure of psychotherapy, it's a dead end. And the fact that I could help people get over their problems quickly, rather than years, quickly move on. Like psychoactive drugs, the stuff, all those drugs they give you to, control your emotions. they're not meant to be on for years and years and years. They really take a toll on your mind if you take them. I mean, they were designed basically, as most things are, from a military standpoint, to get guys out of being totally shot from what they just experienced. Like when the biggest problem the U.S. Army had when they invaded France was they came in and they hit these um, hedgerows that they couldn't go through and they couldn't go around. And the Germans had, their little anti-tank guns set so as, and good old General Patton picked the Patton tank, which was this little cheese box of a tank, had no armor whatsoever, but the German tanks were these gigantic things that had that much armor, where that tank and that, it would stop a rifle bullet, but not a 77 millimeter shell, right? And the Patton tank was built for speed. That's what he was all about, the lightning war. But he couldn't have a lightning war going through those hedgerows. So they got stuck there for a couple months, and they were being decimated. The majority of the soldiers were dying there, and what was really sick was they were turning those tanks out, like 3 every 10 minutes in Detroit. But they lost 1,900 of those tanks the first week. Each of those tanks had a crew of 5, and they had people all around them. And they were like tinderboxes because they were not diesel, they were gasoline. So inside they had 100 or 200 gallons worth of gasoline. And the Germans would shoot a 77 into that tank. It would go right through the armor like butter. And it had a phosphorus explosive. I mean, anything it touched turned into fire. So it spread this phosphorus everywhere. All the guys caught on fire. The gasoline exploded. All the, shells in their tank exploded. It was a horrible way to. There's a movie with Brad Pitt in it where he's a tanker, and they show that the best. There's a scene where one of these tanks gets hit and just turns into an inferno, and the guys jump out and they're covered in gasoline and they're just burning. They're like Roman candles. And there's this one way, and I can't even get this picture out of my head, but guys on fire, right? And the other guys are coming out and stumbling down and just burning like cordwood on the ground. But this guy, he has enough in him to take his service revolver and it's on fire and puts it to his head and blows his head off. And that's what happened in the first 6 months of our invasion. And we don't talk about that. Go watch that movie with Brad Pitt. Him as a tanker. Anyway, so when LeConte was this Freud, everything sex. It was young, everything was active unconscious, right? Kind of what this guy's talking about, that there's nothing new under the sun. And LeConte was about borderline personality things. And what he basically said, when anybody talks about you, you're basically talking about yourself. So if you say you're crazy or you have a borderline personality, well, that's because you have one and you've heard it your whole life. And so that's the only way you can strike out is by projecting your suffering onto other people instead of trying to share your joy with other people, And folks who do that, they never talk about what makes them happy, or they never talk about how they make other people happy. It's always about themselves, right? Now, I tell stories about myself, but they are, that's what a griot does. It tells a story about himself or about, and not so much about himself, but about a specific kind of thing that him who wanna be he. So, and I've always just wanted to be me, And I realized there's lots of different me's in me. So I didn't just stick with wanting to be a rock and roll star or a movie star or the best known this or the most famous that or a millionaire because I lived like a millionaire every day, even though I only had $2 or $3 in my pocket, you know? I come here and everyone treats me like, the old sage that I am. I have my own little table. I can stay here forever. They constantly give me more coffee than I know what to do with. So, life is to be shared, and that's why I do this. I go to the effort. I have to drive 20 miles to do this, right? And, you know, it's 11:21. So, ooh, look at that. 1 hour, 11 minutes, and 11 seconds. Well, like I said, I'm a griot. I tell stories. And, I became a photographer. Like my dad, like I said, at 10, gave me the camera, the Rolleiflex to take his pictures because he wanted the evidence to show what he did. So pretty much I continue to do that myself. And if you go back in some of the old shows, you can see the photo books I show of, oh, there's me with, Johnny Carson. Oh, there's me with Gerald Ford. Oh, there's me with Albert Einstein. Oh, there's meeting. Those are, photos before, you could do Photoshop. Anyway, but I don't have to explain myself because I tell stories that can share with you, and, folks who try, really nobody tries to besmirch me, because people appreciate what I do for them, and those who can't are like, Nitty says, him who wanna be he, that's basically it. And I really, really pity Yo-Yo, Yo-Yo, I feel sorry for you, buddy, that you're so miserable, I mean, you probably have all the money, your mommy and daddy are probably giving you tons of money. You probably have no worries, probably don't have to do a day's work in your life, and you probably don't do anything, you probably have children that you don't see, that they're somewhere else, and you have nothing to do with them, but you say that they're the most important thing for you. You can't have a relationship with a woman because you're actually, here, let me read you something from this book that really puts it just the way it should be. Boom, 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 boom. Boo, 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 boo. Ah. My dress I carry my ass around Evie's wedding in is tighter than skin tight. It's what you call bone tight. It's that knockoff print of a shroud of Torin, most of it brown and white, draped and cut so shiny red buttons through the stigmata. Then I'm wearing yards and yards of black silk gloves bunched up on my arms. My heels are nosebleed high. I wrap Brandy's half mile of black tulle stubbed with sparkles up around my scar tissue over the shining cherry pie where my face used to be, wrapped tight until my eyes are out. It's a look that's bleak and morbid. The feeling is we've got a little out of control. It takes more effort to hate Evie than it used to be. My whole life is moving farther away from any reason to hate her or anyone. It's moving far away from reason itself. It takes a cup of coffee and a Dexedrine capsule to feel even vaguely pissed about anything. Brandy, she wears a knockoff Bob Mackie suit with a little peplum skirt and the big. And these are guys. These are queens. And Evie, who's um, getting married, is basically you know a a transgendered person. I mean, this book, you got to read this book. But it bounced around so much, it's hard to pick out a specific. Wearing a dress that shreds, holding very still. Brandy says, I've been on my own pretty much since 16, with every breath, even her taking shallow Davon overdosed little gulps of air. Brandy winces. She says, there was an accident when I was 15, and at the hospital, the police accused my father of abusing me. I mean, these are all things that, if you read this book, you will see Yo-Yo. There's Yo-Yo. There Yo-Yo is. Or Yu-Yu. There's Yu-Yu and Yo-Yo. And you should, everyone, especially you should read this book, because this Yu book is about you. Yep, I wash my clothes, and actually, I don't wash anything. Your own human biome does much better without a shower. Soap dries your skin out, takes all the, meaning if you don't want to get bit by insects, don't take a shower, because your natural biome is better than any off or DEET or anything like that. It'll definitely keep you from getting bit. Because I'm out in the middle of a deep forest. And yes, areas I cleared out 20 years ago are nice and pretty and look like a garden. I guess that's what I wanted to look like, the Garden of Eden. But garden here, deep forest here, and it's covered in every kind of plant that's going to kill you. Poison oak, poison ivy, poison sumac, bees, hornets, snakes. And what's really amazing is all the critters, they stop right at the Garden of Eden things. And the only folks that are in the Garden of Eden are birds. I have a lot of hummingbirds. And I have a lot of other birds, because I have all kinds of plants and flowering this and flowering that, and they can build their nests in, and very happy to be there. And the other things that are there are honeybees. So I have a lot of honeybees, and they're really big, And the secret about getting honey is that if you take it from the hive, there's a portion of the hive that is like the storage bin, right? And you can almost put a little tap in that sucker. It's a natural hive, not, the ones that beekeepers have. And there's a way it was shown to me, my old mountain grandma, that if you just put this like little way of draining into a little can, the honey will go into it. And it will only take about 20% of the hive. And the bees don't mind that. Anything, 20% and under doesn't bother them. Once it gets above 20%, they start to, but 20% and below, and they won't even bother if you go over to get that little cup. And, so I have this nice little cup that I made, and it has a lid, and the thing goes into it. And I only do it to one hive, it's the biggest one. And I go and talk to them, and say, how you doing? And they like that, Mm-hmm. Boo, 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 boo. Ah. Well, like I said, I don't watch. Well, I don't have a river. I mean, so the one river that's nearby me where the waterfall is. Well, that's a waterfall. It's like, you know, I don't really watch close on that. What I do is I go into my nearest town where I have a friend, and they love seeing me. And so whenever I come by, they love me coming visiting, and I do my laundry in their very nice modern washing machine. And so like this shirt, right? So I've been wearing this shirt now for 3 weeks. And what I do is I wear it one day, and I have a nice little line in the sun, and I put it on a hanger, and I hang it on the line. And if it rains, it gets wet. And then the sun comes out and dries it. And that sun with the UV is so strong, it'll kill whatever bugs there might even thinking of going on. So take it off, and it smells fresh as, fresh rain. And that's how I once a month go visit my friends in this town, and I have lunch with them, and I make them something. They know I have no money, but they will get things they want to eat and have me cook for them. And I will cook a whole bunch of things because they're older. They're older than I am. So I cook a whole bunch of things and put it in Tupperware in their fridge. Right? So, they can have a meal a day that is not like, pablum, but it's nice, right? And she is a really good baker, but she's too old. So I help her, bake, and she bakes me bread. And that's what a community is about. That's what living with people is about, sharing and caring. So now I don't, wash my diapers in the, because I don't have diapers. Well, I've been out here now 3 weeks, with very limited financial resources, but, so I go visit those old folks that are maybe 32 miles from me and wash my clothes. I did that a week or two ago, and so I cook a whole bunch of food for them. I wash my stuff. We sit on the porch. I tell them stories. They tell me stories. And when I left, the old guy puts 60, 320s in my hand. It said, when he's shaking my hand. And I go, oh, I can't take that. I said, I hug him and kiss him and thank him, thank you. And they always, no, thank you. We look forward to you showing up. You leave us, weeks of freshly made meals in the fridge. No one does that for us, instead of eating, cheese sandwiches and toast and tea, you make us some really nice stuff. And we love hearing your stories, and we love being with you, right? So I don't think I'll starve. And if I really had to, I'm sure these people would put me up on their couch. And they're, I got a bunch of other people, but they're worse off than I am. I live out in heaven, I mean, I've lived out there. When it starts to get really cold, it's so difficult, but not impossible. I've done it before, Living at the school, it's easy. It's easy in that I drive my car up to the front door. I walk 4 steps in to the front door, and once again, the front door, 2 steps to the right is the bathroom, 2 steps to the left is the kitchen. I walk, 8 steps, 10 steps to my little sleeping Carol, and that's it. So it's all on one single flat plane. It doesn't stress my legs out. It doesn't, give them exercise either. And so that's easy. That's when people look at the end of this culture, people, I have a lot of Christian friends because I know the Bible pretty well. Back in the day, I could, suss Hebrew pretty well, suss Latin pretty well. Not so much today, because it's kind of a thing you got to get into. And I haven't really touched those languages for 30 years. So anyway, And a scholarly pursuit, you got to do. It's not something you do over here and then 6 months later you do it. No, it's like you got to do it every day, kind of. And I really haven't done that kind of work. Oh, I would say 96 was when I kind of took off my scholarly hat and put on my corporate hat, you know. And and you know, death doesn't scare me. You know, I've died 6 times already. You know, and pretty much I've lived 20 different lives. You know, and so the people who understand truth, you know, and also I have photographic evidence of everything I've done. Um, And I have tons of people that you could go call them up and go, oh yeah, Al, well, yep, he was there. Yep, yep, he helped us do. Oh yeah, well, wouldn't have happened without Al, you know. And I keep trying to do that. I mean, there are people in the towns I've lived in the last 20 years who I could say, hey, go call them, and they go, oh yeah. So, um,
Would you like regular?
and that's what I try and do. I try not to stick to the same boring thing over and over again. You know, I've done this for 20 years and no one says anything about what I do, and there's no recognition, but I do the same thing over and over, expecting a different outcome. Well, sorry, I don't do that. You know, I do it until I've done it, and then I go do something else. And I have the excitement and interest of doing. That's one way. You know, between 1964 and 96, I traveled a lot. You know, I traveled around the world. I did all kinds of things. Like I said, I never just went and spent a weekend someplace. I would, you know, oh, wow, Ireland, oh, I'm going to spend a few years here. Oh, wow, you know, Jamaica, this is nice. You know, I spent 6 months there, maybe a little bit longer. Brazil, a year and a half. You know, Australia, 3 years, you know, and did a lot of things in those places because I could. Because I was ready to reinvent myself on the foundation of who I was. You know, I never kind of threw the baby out with the bathwater, but I always was ready to try something new. Oh, I can't do that. Oh, I'm scared to try and do that. You know, and if I were to make a movie, I would make the same movie over and over again. You know, John Birmingham's movies are basically the same movie over and over again. You know, John Birmingham being a gay vampire. That's what basically his movies are about, you know. And you know, he made a very nice little movie about him driving down his driveway going to get his mail. I thought that was great. But it was basically a reiteration of Rednecks, which was, you know, a gay vampire being a redneck. And so, and now these movies are amazing. They're hilarious, you know, and I wish more people would look at them with an open mind because they're amazing. They are just, and because they really talk to what's going on in the subconscious mind of, you know, the canary in the coal mine. It really, really, really shows what it is, you know.
Just water, ice and lemon. And I'd like your water, ice.
So, you know, and you know, I don't really get hungry. You know, so I'm not, you know, in the last 3 weeks, I have just been eating berries and drinking bark tea, and the last few dollars I had, I bought some cheese and eggs, and I have some oatmeal. I love oatmeal, you know. So, and you know, I bought one bunch of bananas, right? You know, they were 8 bananas, and I take half of a banana and I cut it up and I put it in boiling water until it dissolves, and then I put raisins in there, and they kind of dissolve or at least get mushy, and it's interesting. I don't have to put a lot of raisins in, You take a spoonful of raisins, and when they boil, they expand and expand, and those spoonful of raisins turn into, oh, look how many raisins are in there. Then I put the oatmeal in, and I don't put much oatmeal in either. And then I season it with cayenne and dill and cumin and cinnamon, right? And bring it all to a boil, mix it, turn off the heat, walk away, come back in an hour and eat it. And like this much oatmeal turns into this much oatmeal. So that's all I've been eating the last 3 weeks. And, an occasional breakfast at IHOP or over at the lake, And that's just a cheese sandwich with a little bowl cup of soup. And again, both these places let me stay there as long as I want. And because I've read everyone's palm and given everyone insight into their lives, and the owners to the lowest person is like appreciative of that. And the owner once said, every time you're here, I make more money. I said, well, why don't you give me something? He said, well, maybe I will. And of course, never does, but that's okay, because I get the love and kindness from that community. That's another community I have, And I got these little communities all around here that I've helped over the years, and they appreciate me. And then, there really isn't anyone other than Yo-Yo like Yo-Yo. And maybe that's what's, and Yo-Yo really, really represents the canary in the coal mine, the John Birmingham motif, And John Birmingham is brilliant. Everything he does is brilliant. It's just amazing. But it's more like a cross he's carrying instead of, playing the guitar. He did a video, I don't know when, but just recently, where he's playing the guitar. He goes, I haven't picked up the guitar in a long time. Picks it up, and it's really, it shows that he can play the guitar. But if you go to whenever the last time he played the guitar, it's still the same riff. It's not a new riff. And you go to the next, it's the same. You go back 20 years, it's the same riff. And pretty much everything John Birmingham does is brilliant, but it's the same riff. There is no exhibition of new things. And yeah, he's got, 20,000 subscribers, and every time he's, the algorithm is there. So every time he puts anything up, maybe 40 to, 200 people look at it. And whenever I'm there, 16,000 people watch it. But, I put this up for the cadre. I don't put it up for, YouTube fame and fortune. And so I don't even put up any titles. I put up a title, but I don't put up, what it is and the description and tag words. Because, whenever I do, I just try to make something funny, and that doesn't do anything for the algorithm. So I don't even bother. And so you folks who do watch, I love you, because you're the cadre. And it's, I can see how it is informing and assisting and making this a community. And when bots like Yo-Yo show up, it's okay, because he's comic relief. He represents John Birmingham. He represents the canary in the coal mine, which all are like, Brandy Alexander says, there's nothing new under the sun. I used to invent things. And my first wife, and for lighting fixtures for fancy restaurants, and because we'd have architectural motif and Bugatron or Lightron or whatever light manufacturers. We didn't have some, so I would fabricate light fixtures that looked appropriate for the aesthetic. And there were a couple of things that I really, because I was big into mirrored balls. There's a thing called a sealed beam, and it was designed to be an aircraft landing light. and it's a parabolic reflector. And then there's the element, and in front of it is another parabolic reflector. So the light hits that and then goes into the bigger and comes out as a beam, right? And it's kind of what a LECO does. And LECO does the same thing. And LECO is more or less a spotlight projector, you know? So I would get all these aircraft landing lights that were 12 volts, right? And make a DC power supply and hook it up to a battery. And that would charge the battery. The battery would be the 12 volt rectifier. And then I just run bare copper wires, you know, on insulators across a room. And where these aircraft lights had these two screws on them that you would put fork connectors to, so they couldn't come undone. But what I would do was put the the lamp here with the two wires here and tighten those screws down on it. So it would be this light bulb hanging in space, and I'd have it pointed at a mirrored ball or a specific thing, task lighting. And because of the way the lamp was, you didn't need to shield it because it sent out a column of light. The light didn't go all over the place. So anyway, I did this in a number of bars and discos. And a Lunatron or some lighting manufacturer saw this and saw that nobody patented it, so they did, right? And it started, you can see a lot of that, where you have a lamp hanging on two wires, right? And it's a low voltage lamp, right? So anyway, so my wife said, "That was your idea. You should have." And I said, "No." You think I was the only guy thinking of that? No. I was the one guy who did it in New York City in discos and restaurants. But there were a lot of other people thinking about it. And those people went that extra step into the manufacturing, into licensing it with the underwriter laboratories, and then marketing. I couldn't do any of that. That's not me. So I didn't do it. So there were a lot of things people would say, "Well, Al started that." No. I was collective. I was tapping into the collective consciousness of all those folks. And so, the thing about fear will only beget fear. If you're not scared of something, but you're respectful of it, that's where it's about. It's about respect. Be respectful about it. That's where it's at. So, there's already bears in my woods, and they're right over there, and they've been right over there for the last 25 years. And they're very nice. This one bear, he's like over by the waterfall, and he just sits there. And he kind of sticks his head under the water. He loves sticking his head under the water. And, I've been over the waterfall and, washing myself off because it's really refreshing. I mean, the water hits you like a ton of bricks. It's like getting massage. And that's what he does. He's kind of, oh, yeah, oh. And I let him do it, right? And but more than once, I've gone over there to do it because I don't see him. And I go over there and, it takes me because that isn't like my property. That's the forest. Yeah, there's a path that I go, but it's still the forest. Anyway, and to get down to the waterfall, it's tough. It's like rocks and my legs aren't. I have to put on my clamps and braces to climb a mountain. So I do, and I get down there, and there's a great place for me to put the hammock. And anyway, so I went there and I did that, and then my hammock I put in the sun so I could dry off, and I had my clothes. I kind of was wearing them and would take them off and throw them on the rock. Anyway, when I woke up, maybe 20 yards from me, the bear was in there. You could hear the water hitting him and then go. So I kind of looked up. He looked at me. If he could have waved, he would have. But he just was there. They went over, and he kind of was next to my clothes, and the sun was still on this big rock, and he just laid down on that rock, and I just went to sleep. And I woke up, and he was gone. Now, most people would have gotten freaked out and got a gun and shot him, but No, we shared that rock. My clothes were there. He was there. I was sleeping in the hammock about 20 yards away from him, and we had respect. And so, and that's what it's about, respect. And and there are times I get annoyed at the raccoons because they have no respect. But once I just say, okay, it's like yo-yo, I just kind of ignore them. It's there. It's not a problem. And they get less and less annoying, and then they, mellow out. But when they put their footprints, they actually went in. They went found a place with mud, came over and put their footprints on my nice old first leather briefcase I had that my uncle Arthur gave me. I was like, oh. And then I said, that's like, I'm not going to clean that off. I'm not going to change it. I put it in one of the YouTubes. And, and once I did that, once I tipped my hat to the hidden hand there, they didn't come back. They stopped messing the place up because every night I'd come back to the shack and they'd like go through my dishes and, throw the garden, open up the garden. They wouldn't even eat anything. They would just make a mess. So once I showed the hands on the YouTube, they stopped doing it because I gave them respect. Anyway, it's getting close to 12. There's a couple phone calls I want to make. I will probably come back in an hour. Why don't you guys go get more people? We've had a nice little chat. I'll have to take a look at that. A higher pitch, the taller the tails are. It spins. Yep. Probably true, Daniel. Thank you for that. Danielle? Yes. DM. Aaron's very right. Time only exists on this dimension outside of this experience. Time is irrelevant because it's all like that. I mean, the Big Bang was the Alpha and the Omega. We're experiencing this because we need to. This is our little sandbox. This is our kindergarten, right? And then Twitchy, wow. You hard left. What do you mean by that? Never heard of it. Me neither. Do. What happens when messages get retracted? What do you write something and then you don't want it to be seen? Is that what happens when you retract a message? Once upon a time. Oh, I like that. Right, I'm like Grimm's fairy tales, Yeah. Well, if you're gonna delete it, don't write it. That's what is that? That's having, there's nothing wrong with having a prejudice when it's just your opinion. When you have a prejudice and you force it on other people, well, that's a problem. But when you have, I like chocolate cake, but I don't like coconut cake. Well, that's a prejudice. You're prejudiced against coconut cake, so that's fine. But, I hate all people who eat coconut cake. That's not a good idea. I woke up early this morning. Hope hoping to see the Perseus meteor showers. Did anyone catch the Perseus meteor showers? Do 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 do. Do, 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 do. Did anyone see the meteor showers? When I got up around 4:30, I'm pretty good at waking up to do, you know, it's like the Indians. They would, if they wanted to get up early in the morning, they'd drink a bunch of water and they'd have to get up. So I drank a little bit of extra water and I got up around 4:30 and it was a cloudy night, so I couldn't, and the moon was just setting, so it was illuminate. I couldn't see the moon, but it was lighting up the clouds, so it made it hard to see the Perseus. So did anybody see the Perseus? Anybody? Perseus meteor showers, Thomas. Not UFOs. UFOs might have been up there because, boy, if you want to see UFOs, get yourself night vision goggles, right? Go online and get yourself a pair. And I have a friend of mine. He's a Navy boy, and he's got super duper serious military night vision goggles. He's got a bunch of them. So he has a place on top of a hill where there's no light whatsoever, and he drives me up there in his golf cart, and he's got these really nice lounge chairs, and we just sit there and put these goggles on, and man, you can't believe the stuff that's flying around up there. Shooting, it was a Perseus, I'm sure. That could have been somebody else. And that's okay too. So I'm going to make the phone calls anyway. I'm good. You might bring the menu back.
Do you want one?
Yeah.
I'll get you some water if you want.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Would you bring me a cup of ice?
Ice?
Hey, homie boy. I'm at the IHOP here in Fancy Boom. It's now 11. I'll probably be here till 2. I'm on Dreamy Dreamline doing a live chat. And what else is? I'd love to hear from you. Thank you. About what you experienced. Love to hear from you. Tomorrow in the AM, and most of the part of the day, I will be in a place where I'll have a phone call. Tonight I won't be. You can drive up and visit. It's only 18 miles from the IHOP. Anyway, talk to you later. Oh, and there is really no place to drive into a lake to commit suicide. All my life, especially when I was really sick, I never thought of suicide. I kept thinking, boy, this is interesting. I wonder how this movie is going to play out. Death will come soon enough. I don't have to bring it on any sooner. And the fact that, when I was, working for the Desperate Warriors, living in a swimming pool of chocolate mousse, and I, was almost 500 pounds, that was a form of suicide. It took its toll. That's why I have all the physical things. Meaning, if I had got that weight, I wouldn't have, I would have still had these issues, but not as bad as they are now. And I didn't die, and I didn't let the doctors cut me up like bologna. So, that was another interesting movie. You know, I wrote 6 novels out of it. That was pretty good. And this little adventure in the last 3 years, I've written another 4 novels. So it's all good, you know. Anyway, so boop, boop, boop. So 1 hour and 50 minutes and 46 seconds. And it's noon. Okay. It's almost 2 hours I've been talking. Oh, I'm going to take a little break now, and I'll come back. Woodstock. Thomas, are you from Woodstock? I hung out in Woodstock a good deal. I was there for the big concert, but wasn't there for the concert. I set up the stage and lighting, and then we had to move it to Yasgur's farm. And then I missed the big show, and all my cohorts were upset that I didn't get electrocuted and got typhoid like they did, or take the brown acid. I was sleeping in my bed, right? And we had seen enough big, like the really big rock and roll show was at Watkins Glen in upstate New York. That actually had 1 million people. Who would want to talk to you? So you're just there. You're just a nice little comic relief bubble. You're like a comic strip, buddy. You know? And we're gonna give you my phone number. Sorry, bud. You know, really never gonna talk about you or respond to anything you say. So until you'll get bored and go away, just like other trolls and other bots have done before. So, and instead of, there've been a lot of people who are way more abrasive than you, and instead of them, doing what you're doing, being the selfish little child who is scared of living, they actually expanded their thoughts and their love, and the community embraced them, right? So I do love you, buddy. Doesn't mean I have to respond to you. Doesn't mean I need to talk to you. Don't need any of that from you, because you're doing what you seem like you only can do, and that is to be a comic strip thought bubble. And it's interesting how you respond to the cadre. And we kind of respond to you, but we really don't. Army. Woodstock Army? Oh, Woodstock is so Thomas, are you in Woodstock? Because it's a very weird town. It's been around as a kind of bohemian bourgeois Howard Johnson's for a long time. And the way the road comes in off the whatever main road that is, expressway or interstate or whatever. I don't even think it's that, but it's a major road than a county road. And it comes in and it swirls around, and there's this kind of strip mall and then a few stores. And there's one of those few stores always is a hairdresser. And the road kind of comes in and goes into Woodstock, which is a nice little hamlet of a town. And it comes to the center where, I don't know if there's statue or a fountain, but there's a bunch of stores right there, and there's a nice coffee shop and a nice this and a nice that in that curve, and on the other side of that curve is a grassy kind of hill where they play music sometimes, or people can sit in stone benches, and it's actually quite nice, except because I think its only economy is the tourist trade. And there are certain times, and I was there in the 80s. I was there for that experience of Woodstock event, Then had nothing to do with it. And then I came back after a rainbow gathering, kind of met some people who were renting a house, and they wanted me to watch it while they weren't there. So until they rented it, and so I did, and it was nice. It was nice staying there. And I met a guy whose parents had a nursery with a glassed-in greenhouse, and I had met him in New Mexico, and he was part of a crew that built a city in the desert with these things called earth ships. There was an Italian architect who did an amazing thing of, his architecture was all about, fitting in with the environment. And so what he did was he got himself a backhoe with a front end loader and found his place out in the middle of the desert where there was a tire farm, millions of tires. And so what he did was he would dig down into the ground and realize that there was moisture 15, 20 feet down, even though the top was a desert, because there would be these rainstorms and it would go down there. And he would dig down to that, and then he would build the walls out of the tires. He'd stack the tires here, fill them full of dirt, stack them, right? And then when he got above the ground level, he would make stained glass windows with beer bottles, sticking them so the big end would be facing the moon. And it was like air conditioned. It'd be like 120 out in the desert. It'd be like 60, 50 in that house. And we built a bunch of those. Anyway, I stumbled across this guy. He came home because both his parents died, and he inherited their nursery and these, glass greenhouses. And what we did, he goes, "Oh, you're the electrician. Can you help me? I want to do this." And I said, "Sure." And so what we did was we went to it was a Sperry Rand place, and they were making something for satellites, and they had tons of solar cells, like little round guys, right? And a ton of them were broken, and so they would just have them out in the parking lot, and you could go through them and take as many. So we took a ton of those and made big arrays, and we would solder the broken part of a solar cell and glue them to 4x8 sheets of masonite that we would put on plywood that we would put on a tracking device, and we would get current from that. And because we were near the Hudson and Moran tugboats were down there, we would go down there, and they had these gigantic deep cell batteries. We would get those very cheap because they didn't throw anything away, but they couldn't use them. They didn't have enough amp to turn the big motors to turn the diesels. So, but they wouldn't throw them away or sell them for lead. And so we would get them for a pretty good, easy price. And we put them in series, and we would store a lot of current. But we didn't need the oomph of the amperes that you do need to turn over a diesel engine, especially the gigantic diesels that those tugboats have. But we had those batteries stored current for lighting and non-heavy use. And what we did was we used those batteries to turn that current, and we would put it into tanks of water and turn it into oxygen and hydrogen. And we did hydroponics. And we went to a truck graveyard, and we found a number of milk tankers, big tanker trucks that were stainless steel, food grade. They transported milk because there was a big dairy area, and they would get into a crash and be all banged up. And he bought those, and we cut them in half and turned them on the ground and made them into ponds in the greenhouse. And we had trout and bass, and we had this Ferris wheel device that would go up and it would scoop water, and hydroponically we grew all kinds of vegetables, soybeans, all kinds of vegetables, especially water, all the kind of Korean and Japanese vegetables that are water based, and and he was really into smoking. So we smoked the fish and the vegetables, we sell them. And the bourgeois community of Woodstock loved the fish and the vegetables. So he made quite a nice, comfortable living out of doing this. And once we only spent about 3 or 4 months putting this together, and it was, it ran itself, you know. And we had this little waterfall that the fish would kind of go over, and we would just, and they had to be big enough to get over that waterfall in the pond. And if they could get over that, we just had nets, and they would just go in them. He'd take them, skin them, smoke them. I mean, it was, it didn't even fish them out. And so it was an amazing thing for sustainability. And this guy was, and his last name was Lovejoy. So go look him up, right? And there's 3 guys, Sam Lovejoy, this guy, and another Lovejoy who's got more PhDs, who's like the daddy. And all 3 were about, Sam Lovejoy and the daddy Lovejoy were the daddies of Earth Day. And the other guy, I don't know, because what he did was just brilliant. And this was like 1987 we did this. And it was totally sustainable, made vegetables, fish, electricity, and we turned that electricity into hydrogen and oxygen. The hydrogen we used, because hydrogen is just a few molecules more volatile than natural gas, right? So we ran all the gas appliances. His gas heater in the house was run on the hydrogen. The stove was run on the hydrogen. The hot water heater was run on hydrogen. We then, made hybrid hot water heaters. We found these 100-gallon hot water heaters, gas ones, and we made different burners where we injected oxygen, so it burned even hotter. And we put we took the hot water heater out of its exterior shell and put it into it like a thermos, and it was metal, not glass. And we would have that get really hot. That would heat up. So we didn't put the main blaze on the hot water. It probably would have melted it, but this thing. So we got pretty hot water, not steam, but pretty hot water, which we then ran through the radiators in the house and the radiators in the hot house. So we didn't have to use the open air gas heaters. So, I mean, we did stuff, everything came out of the junkyard, and, he wrote about it. I had friends from Cooper Union and NYU and MIT come and look at it, and they'd have their kids, their students come. And I mean, the technology has been around for sustainability since the 1890s. And nobody seems to want to do anything. Anyway, pretty much anybody who's in the cadre knows, I've done over 700 shows. So it's pretty evident who and what I am just by looking at those shows. And if you want to look at what Yo-Yo's talking about, the first show that John Birmingham as Yo-Yo showed up was Saturday, I think. So just go back to Saturday's show. He wanted to talk about my cheese sandwiches so he could talk about, whatever. And, we didn't want to talk about anything that you guys talk about. Yep, the sun is powerful, gives life to this earth. So that's the story. Let's see, who else can I see if they're around? Boop, 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 boop.
I think this is yours. Okay. I apologize in about 5 minutes. So. it out that way. The kitchen is quite busy, so I'll go check on your water.
I'm quite busy too, and we've been here for 45 minutes. Nobody else has been here for 45 minutes. They're all eating. Would you please get a move on?
Yes, sir.
Hey, bud, it's me. I'm just testing you out. I'm still in a place I can get a phone call. Give me a buzz if you can. See you tomorrow. That would be great. I'll talk to you again. I'll, jingle your bell a few more times before I go into being off the grid. Okay, catch you later. Anyway, and so Yo-Yo is, so tantamount with angst about your little sensei here, that it's kind of amusing. Obviously, whenever anyone's upset about something, it's always about something else. So I'm just representing something for Yo-Yo, and that's okay. That's what shrinks do. They give people the space to vent, and that's what Yo-Yo is doing. He's just venting. And maybe he might come around, Like I said, there've been so many members of the cadre that were way more off the hook than Yo-Yo. And whatever mean, cruel things that Yo-Yo says about me, hurtful, spiteful things, are really just reflections of what his life experience is. So all I can do is feel pity for Yo-Yo, and hope that he can find a path that will enable him to be, something new and different. Yo-Yo, you need to read this book, The Invisible Monster, If that's you, buddy, because you want to be, you don't want to be that, you want to be this, You want to be that queen, You want to wear stockings. You want to wear those mile-high high heels. You want a bustier to lift your womanhood up. Space has no end. Yep, and that's the beauty of it. It has no end. We observe everything with our limited, eyes, ears, nose, taste. Our little hairs on our people who shave the hair off their skin, they're wiping out one of their most important senses. The hair on your skin gives you the ability to have 360, because whatever little you feel, just a little insect go by, it's there. So whatever's moving the air moves those little hairs, and it gives you a feedback loop of what's going on around you. Sweetie, I will have a replay of what I had.
Okay.
Same thing.
Did you also want the sour cream and the salsa?
Oh, yeah. Thank you. I've been here long enough to have another meal. So I'm getting the cheapest meal they have. That's it within my budget. So, and there are gifts that creation has left us all around us. And our life is one big gift. Anyone who thinks about suicide is selfish, because all they can think about is themselves. They don't think about the co-creation that they're really part of. They are ignoring, all our relations, right? And, the same goes if you are a parent, a mother or a father, and you commit suicide. That's like my mom. She didn't want kids, but she was Catholic, and my dad was stooping her all the time. So we had 6 kids, and she was not happy until they left, and I was the only one that kind of amused her, and I did a few things that really kill you, and as long as I didn't do that, and brought her cut flowers and gave her the things that I was writing so she could correct my spelling, she was happy with that, and she loved the fact, I was reading all these books, and she would once say, so what are you reading now? I tell her, I said, oh, I read that, or I didn't read, tell me about it, right? especially when she got older. She'd be sitting in her, one of the nicest things, I took care of my parents for, when they were in their 70s. They go, oh, you have to take care of us. And, all my siblings were in the family business. I wasn't, My dad tried to have a business with me and then he just couldn't take it. Yeah, like a cat. Yeah. So, he said, you have to take care of us. And I said, okay, but only on one thing. He said, when you're nice, when you're your better self, when you're fun, I'll be with you, no problem. When you're a jerk, well, what if I fall down the stairs? Well, if you're nice and you fall down the stairs, I'll be there. If you're a jerk, forget about it. Maybe I'll call 911. But, I thought they'd die, but they didn't. They lived another almost 30 years and I took care of them. And I did it not because of I'm going to get money from them, because I knew them enough that my dad had to be a millionaire. So he spent every nickel he had. So when he died, he had nothing to give us, my sisters, because he kept saying, when I die, you'll all be millionaires. And it didn't happen. And so, what can I now, I only have the good parts of fetal alcohol syndrome. The sense of humor, I've worked in a lot of hospitals, and there was one I worked in where the people were more physically instead of mentally, off the rocker. They were, they had MS, and there were a number of people who were, babies of thalidomide. So they came out looking like, a science experiment. They had, tentacles rather than arms, and flibbers rather than legs. Anyway, so I hung out. I did on the weekends a group home of people like this, which was pretty tough because I had to move them around, put them up, clean them. But I treated them like human beings, and we had loads of fun. They were laughing. They were like having a great time. And I was there from Friday at 3 p.m. to Monday at 11 a.m. And those, I would get $500 cash for that, right? Because I was kind of off the books because by the state regs, you're supposed to have 3 people there, and nobody wanted to do it, so I did it. And I did it to the state protocol so good that after I left and the state went through the books, they started to realize that there was only one person of the, 18 or 20 people in the staff that actually did it the right way. That was me. Everybody else, and the people who owned it didn't care either. They just were getting the money. So those folks got in a problem by me just doing the right job. But so there were a number of people who had fetal alcohol syndrome. They were children of a mother who was an alcoholic, and they were very interesting because they ran the gamut of the physical and mental and everything, but they were the funniest ones. They had the best sense of humor. They took everything in stride. Pretty much all those people I worked with, especially when I was around them, they took it in stride. They didn't do what this. You hear that? What is that but a young soul that is not getting the proper attention? Their parents are, more interested in their screen, right? So. No, I don't think you're 14. I think you're 12. I think you're younger than that child over there crying. And Yo-Yo, if we're so mean to you, just don't come back, okay? Anyway, so well, we're going on 2 hours and 15 minutes, and there's 6 of you there, so that's always good. Yep. Yeah, Trump time around. He's a whiny baby. Yeah. But, you have to. What I love about Donald Trump is that he's no more cruel, no more dishonest, no more lying, cheating scoundrel as Obama was, or W was, or Billy Bob, or H, or Ronnie. There's a great Saturday Night Live where one of those guys acts, like Ronald Reagan, and when he's on the camera, he's that kind of folksy guy, but in the land. Tom Robinson. Yep. Boom, boom, boom. You know what I thought about you? HUGH. Isn't that like the U of color? And that's what every time that's what I think of. That is like this interesting U. Anyway. Oh, in England, Birmingham? Yeah, but not. I didn't stay there. I pretty much stayed in Scotland and in London. I was a London boy. I had this really amazing single room occupancy apartment near Paddington Station, and that was I really like. Well, I love London. I haven't been to London. When was the last time I was in London? 84, 85. Man, the IHOP, the beauty of IHOP is that they aren't anywhere, they're everywhere. So, I'm everywhere. Ireland? Well, Ireland, I'm a West Coast Ireland guy and a Dublin. When I first was there, I was in Dublin pretty much. I went to Trinity. And, when you come out of Trinity and there's like Old Town, right? That's now become Trendy Town. And you come down to O'Connell Street and, that's a big drive. It goes all the way down to the post office. But just before it blows out into O'Connell Street, there is a road that goes this way, and then there's a road that this way, and it kind of goes down to the river, and along that is where all the guys who brew stuff, it's like where the whiskey distillery is and the brewery is, and they have the tours. It's where all the tourists go to, have drinks and look at that thing. And then as you go down that road, which is a kind of main road too, there is a whole little neighborhood that there's a road that goes along the breweries and that kind of goes down to the river. And there is this triangular little neighborhood of, 10 or 15 blocks. And it looks straight out of Harry Potter. And it's like, you're talking about time standing still or moving in different directions. That place does. And there are a couple of pubs down there that the old teachers of Trinity used to hang out at. And so that was my hangout.
and because I'd be the kid, and I had my little, just like this, I had my little corner booth that I would have covered in books, and I'd stay there all day and nurse one black and tan. Brexit, it's exactly, see, like Donald Trump would, Donald Trump got put there because he is the ultimate distraction. He's like, you know, um, so he's there doing all of the stuff, and no one's noticing what's really going on, right? So the same thing is going on with, and the only thing Donald Trump really did was pass $1 trillion a year tax break for things. Is de-evolving, right? The EPA is because it's not changing any of the laws because he can't. And he can't really defund any of these things. But what he can do is not put anyone, he hasn't put anyone in any of the positions to administer these things. The EPA, the Energy Department, HHS, land, all of these have no, they may have his one, sock puppet at the top, but everyone from here down that an administration is supposed to put in, they haven't put in. So nobody's doing anything. So everything's kind of de-evolving, falling apart. So they administratively change this and change that, but they don't change the laws or rules. And that's what's happening with Brexit. Brexit is a big, distraction. And it's, you have to realize that there's a thing called the hidden hand. That is a transnational entity that's been around since Samaria, since we were created as bags of water to be gold slaves, And the hidden hand's been there. And, some people call it the Illuminati, but anything that you can put a name to or a face to, it's just a poster boy of the thing, right? So that's it. That's sweetheart. Did you put that in?
Yes, I
Okay.
did. They're just a little back.
Okay, no problem. So that's the story. Brexit is a representation of the hidden hand, and it is part of the dynamic of the powers that shouldn't be. And all of this stuff goes down because the average person is distracted, just like our friend Yo-Yo here. He is totally distracted. He is like found a new little scab to pick at, and it's us, Whoa! Now, I'm just going to read this one because it's quite humorous, and it pretty much, Thomas, your thing, what is Brexit? This is Brexit. You were such a crybaby about dying in the woods the other day. I opened my home to you and make you my dog and give you all canned Alpo you want. Remember, he is using the same syntax as John Birmingham. And John Birmingham represents the canary in the coal mine. So, that's what the real value of UU here is to give us a prime example, Don't even have to invent it. It's showing up here, right here. And it's giving us, so Thomas, you want to know what Brexit is? It is UU, not wanting to be responsible for the world that he is in, and especially since he has children, that boy, or anybody who has kids right now, you better be looking for a nice place to hide, out, because all my Christians, oh, the end times are coming. We're all going to go, the chosen few are going to be turned into jello and brought to heaven, and the rest of you are going to go to hell. Sorry, that's not going to happen. Because all you got to do is look at history, and, empires have fallen and risen. And every time they fall, there's big disruption. A lot of people die. It's a mess for 40, 50, 100, 200, 900 years, between the Roman Empire and the Holy Roman Empire and, what happened. Again, the next book I've been reading quite nicely, which I will read from, is from Socrates to Sartre. Now that's a pretty deep little thought. So, that's one of the great things about, I got all these boxes of books out in the middle of the woods, in garbage bags covered by, and they've been out there for the last 2 or 3 years, and, they're fine. Now, a couple of them gotten ripped open by the raccoons, and yes, they've gotten a little spoiled. But what's quite interesting is that, yeah, they got all wet, snowed on, rained on, but I brought them back, put them in the sun, and where they open up is the most amazing passages of the 600 pages of the book. Like the raccoons were helping me find the most interesting part of that book. So, that's what you have to look at life as, the opportunity, the things that are truly amazing, and I really thank Yu here, because he really is, if it's a he, I don't know, it could be, I actually think it's a transsexual myself. I think guys wearing, a butt plug and a bustier and leather stockings and as a whip. Because he talked about a dog, he wants to, Anyway. Yeah, if you're gonna insult, see, what I say is not even insults, Again, my greatest patron saint is George Carlin. Just ringing his bell. Well, good luck with them trying to steal. It's like my dogs. And they, they wanted to drive that car in the worst way, but they kept looking at their paws going, no freaking thumbs. My paws aren't long enough to hit the. One time, one of them was down on the gas and brake doing this, and the other one was trying to stick its little paws in the thing. And they couldn't, because they didn't have a thumb, they couldn't push the key to start it. And it was on the, it was like, but they wanted to drive that car. I don't think the raccoons could. I'm a power top? What does that mean? Is that like, I don't want to insult any of the sisters in the cadre, but is that like a muffin top? Oh. Oh, see, this is so much fun. This is so much better than most live chats, right? It's just, I kind of go on and on about a stream of consciousness of stuff. You guys kind of bounce off that. And then there's somebody like Yo-Yo, and it's like the barrel of monkeys, That's really what it's like. Anyway. Yep, super powerful love handles. Yep. And I've had really good friends. I had this one friend who was like, he was a male model. He was actually, he was, I had this group of friends that were models, right? Because I had a really good friend who was the original Marlboro Man, Houston Haynes. And he came from a pretty rich family who, had old wealth, and they had the house in the Hamptons, and they had an actual like estate on Fifth Avenue, a little bit above um, the Museum of Art there. Well, not MoMA, but in the Natural Museum of Art, Museum of Natural History, Museum of American Indian. Then there were all these big kind of houses that used to be estates, but they still had lawns and big fences, and his family had one of those. And they owned a bunch of real estate. And so he was a real estate guy and an antique guy. And he had an auction house down in Soho before it was Soho. And when we had the Una Bear Gallery on Broome and West Broadway, there was this like triangle there, and there was another road, and he had this building that was an auction house, loading dock, trucks, and he'd have this big space warehouse that he'd have auctions once a week. So I used to go over there, and he had an electric problem, and I went and fixed it for him, and we became buds. And he was amazingly handsome. I mean, he had that Nazi square chin look of blonde hair, blue eyes, amazing. All the girls loved him. And I was, I don't know, 17, 18, no older than 20, if that. And we'd go out, hit the bars, and the girls would, go like right on him. And I would, always, he would pick the whatever one he wanted, and then I would get a choice of, and they were always older than me, and it was great. I loved older women. They were older. They were maybe 4 to 10 years older than me, but they knew exactly what they want. They didn't want to fool around. There was no like, oh, does he love me? No. They thought it was cute. They thought it was interesting. They thought it was fun. I was entertaining. And that was good for them. I was, could go on and on all night. That's when I was into my meditative motif. So, that's where it was. So, so anyway, he had this crew of male, model buddies, right? And all they could think about was how they looked, they were always, if we went by any reflective surface, they would be like checking themselves out, very much like John Birmingham does in all his videos. And the only one who didn't was, my Carlton. He didn't do that because he was so over it. He was just over it. So I can't even explain Carlton. He was really, he had all the gifts. Really smart, really wealthy, really well educated. And the one thing he did that really was amazing. So I had all these mentors and teachers and friends and people I hung out with, and I was part of the beat scene, blah, 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 blah. One day I'll dig out the photo books and show them over again. But you can go back to the other shows. That's why I say go back and look at the other shows. A lot of them that are more interesting, more storytelling than these, because Yo-Yo and people like Yo-Yo pop in, and they're comic relief. So I kind of, it's like Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin. I'm the Dean Martin. Yo-Yo's the Jerry Lewis, and I'm just kind of. A hamster? What does that mean? The only allusion to hamsters I know are, gay. And there's nothing wrong with that, as Jerry Seinfeld would say. So, Yo-Yo, it's okay that you're gay. It is. It really is. Yes, exactly. He felt a hamster in his butt. Yeah. whatever floats your boat. Like as Jerry Seinfeld said, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, having a hamster in your butt, yo-yo, is nothing wrong with that. You know, be gay and be proud. You know, gay pride. You know, go out there, buddy. Wear your bustier. Well, I've just had all my teeth pulled, losing all my teeth, so I had all my teeth pulled. And I have to thank John Birmingham for allowing me to be, because the only place I could get my teeth pulled was at a place there in that town. So anyway, a dentist in another town that I was near charged ridiculous amounts of money, and it was a low end kind of thing. The waiting room was, a bench with a light bulb, no cushy chairs with magazines. But my gums have pretty much all healed up, and the bones are filling in there. And it's really interesting how you can pretty much eat food without teeth. Now, I can't go after a steak or something, or an apple, but if I, cut it up in little bits. And what's really good is that the way it works is I just put it in my mouth and I let my saliva break it down. And when you let those enzymes in your mouth break the food down and not just chomp and swallow, you can appreciate it. The tastes are amazing. It's really good. And when it goes into your gut, it digests much, much better. So all of the flora and fauna in your gut are a lot happier. So your immune system's much stronger. So actually, me losing my teeth was, pretty good thing. And with this big beard, you really can't tell I have no teeth. There are only a few vowels and consonants I can't pronounce. But, I survived without losing my chin, which was a great blessing, And my gums are all filling in, and I can pretty much chew anything, So I don't even, at the beginning, I had to blend everything, to baby food. And John would say, why are you doing that? Just Jerry. It's like, ugh. But anyway, so that's about pulling teeth. Getting your teeth pulled can be a good thing. I mean, a lot of people, why do people cut themselves? It's because they want to feel something, and because they're so locked into the same thing, and they're stuck there that they really get stuck. That's a real problem. So anyway, what can I say? So it's almost 2.5 hours. I think I'm going to go. It's been great. This has been really fun and humorous. Again, it's great that these are, in the hollers of dreamy dreamland with Sensible Bob, and they'll stay there for eternity. But I suggest that all of you go through and put down on your hard drives, on thumb drives, CD-ROMs, your top 10, your top 50, your top 100, your top 700 of Dreamy Dreamland. Enjoy it and enjoy the experience. Even if, something happens, it'll be there. So, I'll catch you later, guys. I love you. Boo, boo, boo. I'm ending the stream now. Right now. Yep.